the 10-minute presentation right now. Again, you've seen this before. You have been called back by the company you gave your full presentation to for a second visit. They have asked you to speak only about the ethical aspects of the problem and to explain why your solution successfully handles any ethical issues. You're going to have 10 minutes and there will be no Q&A. You can't use slides or video. And as I said yesterday, that you're going to be it's very important that you not be reading a presentation, that you not be looking at your notes, and that you be facing through the camera so that we can all see you. Since there's just a limited number of students here today, maybe we'll just go through all of them and have each of you introduce yourselves. Aria, why don't you start and then you can ask your question.
Of course, of course. Hey, everybody, I'm very happy to be here today. First of all, can I say something? I think this is the 90 seconds meeting, so we're going to present our 90 seconds. So that was, I think, a little misunderstanding in the part that...
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you for bringing that up. I appreciate that. Imagine that you were an employee of the company whose case you have been studying. You're at a meeting in which people are discussing the issue. However, no one has brought up ethics. There's a pause in the conversation. You have 90 seconds in which to convince the other people at the meeting that there are ethical issues that need to be addressed. You don't have to argue for a solution. You just need them to see that there are serious ethical issues here. And one member of the team, of course, will do this. Trent, can you introduce yourself, please?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Trent Voss. I'm from the Asper School of Business at the University of Manitoba. I am a part-time student while working, and I'm looking forward to the 90-second presentation.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Hayden?
Hello, everyone. My name is Hayden Carroll. I'm studying at the University of Oxford, and I'm studying psychology there. And I'm an undergraduate student, but we're competing in the graduate division because we have some graduate students as well. Thank you.
And because you're that smart, I think that's just great. Are we missing one person? Oh, there he is. There he is. Ladipov, can you possibly introduce yourself to us as well? But you'll need to unmute yourself. Can you hear me? I need you to unmute yourself, Mr. Irat, and introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm here. I'm sorry, I had some problems with the internet connection, but right now I solved them.
So tell us a little bit about you. What's your focus in?
Our research topic is the ethical problems of copper extraction and ways of solving them.
At this point, we just want to know about you. Tell us about you.
Okay, I study at RANEPA University in the Institute of Law and National Security, and now I'm an anti-corruption expert in the Association for Sustainable Machinery Industry Development.
Excellent, thank you. And then the most important person in the room, of course, is our technical person, because they make my life so much easier and less stressful. Michael, would you introduce yourself to us again today?
Hey everybody, Michael Reiner. I've been with IBEC from the beginning, and it's great to have you all here.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for being from God. Okay, now we're going to have each of you run through your presentation, and it's all in a row, and we'll take about a minute in between them so that myself and my two colleagues can finalize any of our notes. And then at the very end, we will have my two colleagues will give you each of you individual team feedback for all 4 teams at once. Any questions at all now? We are starting off with Sharif with the 90-second presentation. Thank you.
Of course, of course. I'll be here with you in a quick second.
Okay. I think we're going to need to, in the interest of time, I think maybe we need to move on to the next one unless you're planning on some kind of surprise for us, Aria. We'll give him 15 more seconds. There we go. Oh, yes. Costumes, excellent. Go ahead.
Let's go. Hey guys, have I told you what happened to me yesterday? I was returning home after my shift and I was wearing the company uniform. I passed that cute little store on 7th Street and went in to buy some juice. A local guy happened to be standing in front of me in the queue, and I noticed that the store owner charged me triple the price he charged the local guy. Can you believe it? Of course I complained. The store owner mumbled something that I couldn't understand and then said, "This is the price. Do you want to buy it or you would rather order it from Tehran?" I left the store immediately. What are these people thinking about us? As I was walking along the shore, I calmed down a little and started to think about it. Maybe they're not really wrong about seeing us this way, you know? We come here from large cities and we stay here only for periods of 2 weeks. We usually bring whatever is up to our taste from our own hometown. My wife usually packs up 2 large suitcases full of food, clothing, and even some board games for those weeks. We barely do any shopping in the region. Maybe they see us as a snobbish city boys that look down upon them and the way they live. They know we're paid very high salaries compared to their local salaries, and we're using their land and resources to make profit. But what are they receiving? Hardly anything except for water and air pollution. I think every time they see one of us, it rings inequality in their ears, and it kind of makes sense.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Arya. Appreciate that. Let me just take a minute here, and my colleagues will too, to write down a couple of notes. Okay, next up, Mr. Irat, from our Russian visitors, if you would like to
Yes,
start.
thank you. Yes, no problem. So let's start. Dear Board of Directors, I represent F&B Consulting, and we are convinced that it is the improvement of business ethics that will help guide the company through these times of crisis. Ethical problems are so urgent to solve because they violate key ethical principles. Moreover, solving ethical risks after they are implemented cost the company so much more in the form of fines and immediate expenses to restore its name than implementing preventive ethical measures. Norilsk spent $1.5 billion to address environmental issues, and Codelco was forced to resettle a town of 25,000 people due to pollution. Equipment is idle due to extreme wear and tear and lack of safety controls, forgetting occupational injuries, which prompt the attrition of the workforce from the production process and, consequently, reduce productivity. Intra-corporate corruption reduces the efficiency of company management and creates precedents for scandals, which also require a significant amount of money to settle. For example, the Chinese company MCC in Afghanistan and Ivanhoe Mines Limited in the Republic of Congo, they spent a lot of money on corruption, but got nothing but reputational costs. And this is why we propose a strategy which in synergy will solve all problems. We will introduce a continuous monitoring system. We will introduce ethical requirements for board members, and we will change the system of bonus payments for top management. We will increase the effectiveness of our anti-corruption policies by joining with other companies in the association and increase investment in environmental charity and diversity, which will reduce our tax costs. Although ESG initiatives rarely create cash flows by themselves, they inevitably improve a company's performance. According to our calculations, we can generate up to $15 million in profits. That's why we should solve ethical problems, not for the good of the others, but for the sake of the company. This is all I wanted to tell you. Thank you for your attention.
Very good, thank you. We'll take just a minute to put some notes in here. Oxford, you're ready to go. you can start. Welcome again for your final presentation, and you can start whenever you are ready.
Thank you. So why is it so important that we, Roosevelt, as a company, make the change to yeast-based collagen? Of course, there are financial benefits and there are other benefits as well outside of that, but at its core, this is an ethical issue. There are environmental, animal, and human reasons why we should make the switch to yeast-based collagen. Now, in regards to animals, basically just being a part of the animal industry and using animal agriculture, we're contributing to animal suffering. These animals are forced to live in intensive conditions, and then they're later slaughtered for human gain. Outside of that, they also are sentient beings with feelings, and they can experience pain. Now, in regards to the environment, a University of Oxford study posits that the best way to help the environment is to simply consume animals less, and that would include animal-derived collagen. And in regards to humans, statistics show that when slaughterhouses enter areas, there are increases in rates of rape, assault, and other things as well. So with all of that, please, let's put forth compassionate, clean collagen and make the ethical decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. 1 minute. We have, last but certainly not least, is our friend Trent Voss, who is from Manitoba, Asper School. If you would just start, Trent, whenever you're ready.
Everyone, I'd like to take a second. I'd like you to imagine you're living in California. There's a drought going on, and you're out there watering your lawn every single day. Now, when someone comes to complain to you, you say, "It's okay. I'm water neutral. I installed low flow shower heads in schools in China where there's flooding." This is an absurd statement, right? The idea of being water neutral is just crazy. And yet our carbon offsets that we keep talking about are just like the low flow shower head example. We're not solving a problem where it needs to be solved. Instead, we're using these carbon offsets as a license to pollute. Our customers are actually starting to question these claims, and they're demanding better. In fact, I want better for us. After all, carbon neutral doesn't mean zero impact. Last year, our operations contributed 3.5 million tons of CO2 emissions into the air. That's the equivalent of launching a 747 full of CO2 into the air every hour, every day. That's just crazy. I joined Delivery Heroes because of our code of ethics and sustainability. I wanted to make a difference. Let's all get together and let's make a real change. Let's stop the polluting. Let's support our riders as they ditch these internal combustion engines and support the restaurants as they transfer to sustainable material. Let's live up to our company's model. Let's be that ethical hero the world needs and make real environmental changes.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you very much, Trent. We'll take 1 minute once again, and then we'll come back, and our two colleagues of mine will give you each individual feedback to the teams. Samantha, are you ready to give some feedback, or do you need more time?
Yes, I can give some feedback. I'll work backwards. So for the most recent presentation, Manitoba, I really liked your very clear call to action. It was very obvious to me as someone who would have been a colleague of yours in the simulation to see that you have a drive, we have an ethical obligation, and you've made your passion very clear, which I enjoyed. And I really loved your stats too. It really hammered home the different dimensions of the case that you're presenting and how your other examples that might not be completely applicable to the industry that you're presenting on in the case may be applicable to the scenario. The only feedback I really have is in the very beginning, some of the other competitors were including in the conversational aspects like the name of the company, what industry they might be in. And I think that would benefit you more, especially if you're going to open with an example that's not applicable to what specifically we are discussing, which I am assuming is carbon emissions rather than water and drought. And then working backwards to Oxford, fantastic speaking skills. I love the pacing. It was very clear to follow, and there was a very nice appeal to emotionality that I think fit very well with this case. I think with the case you're presenting, you have to have that kind of emotionality because it is an issue that is something people are very passionate about. I didn't understand the appeal to the assaults comments. I wish that would have been a little bit clearer and something you could have elaborated on, because it might have been a very powerful part of your case. It just kind of slid in there and I was like, whoa, okay. And then we moved on. I think that could have been like a nice little nail to hammer down. I did like the study that you introduced as well. I feel like that helped me understand more of what you're talking about because I am not familiar with the yeast-based collagen. And I also really appreciated how within the first few lines of your presentation, you immediately told me as your colleague, like, hey, we both work at this company together and hey, we're both looking at this issue. So it was very clear to me from the bat where we were going. And then working backwards again, interesting. I have never seen someone do an appeal to the company along the lines of this ethical solution is for the sake of the company rather than the sake of the people. I have not seen that. And I think that was a very risky position to take. And I definitely see how your case kind of hinged on it. I don't know if I would recommend it moving forward because within maybe just the parameters of the simulation, it's supposed to be a little bit more conversational. But at the same time, it was a risk and it definitely got my attention and I was able to see exactly where your case was hinging from and how you wanted to further integrate into a less corrupted environment for your corporate structure. Maybe I missed it, but I'm not too sure what that is. But I definitely see that you don't want corruption. And we also are doing this for the sake of ourselves rather than the external environment we are impacting. And then to the beginning, the very first presentation, I thought the costume was very cute, but I'm not too sure what we are. I have the impression that you and I are both colleagues at a company where we are almost transient and we show up and we don't integrate into the local economy and we're viewed as like swooping predators that come in and poach resources, but also benefit off of the backs of the local townsfolk. I definitely see your ethical appeal there, and I agree that it was presented very well. It's just I'm not entirely too sure within which box we are operating, and I recommend in the future just to maybe within the conversational lines as we've seen earlier in the presentation, just slip in like a, hey, you and I both work at blank, and you and I both agree that when we do blank, and then we can slide into that, because I think that would really fit with the way that you approached it. I really liked how it was grounded. And it definitely felt like a conversation I would have with somebody after I get off a meeting and I'm in the break room and we're, reminiscing on our days. Some global comments for the group. I think you guys did great. I was very engaged. I really liked the different approaches we saw. I liked how diverse these topics are. I think some of these topics are definitely very hard to jump into in 90 seconds. And I'd like to congratulate you guys and thank you again for coming to IBEC. It's always great seeing you, and I'm excited to hear from the rest of the judges and get their feedback.
Thank you, Samantha. Trinity, can you offer some feedback as well?
Yes, I can. All right. I'm going to actually work from the first to the last. So for the first one, again, I love the engagement. It reminded me of like a cold open. You had our attention immediately. It did seem very conversational, which was great. I do want to echo what Samantha had said. I think maybe a little more information on what the company was would be fantastic. One other thing I love that you took the time to talk about, you had taken the time to go and think. You also gave us an idea about the resources by saying you had gone to the beach. So you're giving us different areas that, again, we might be mindful of that we can be tapping from. However, one suggestion I would give for feedback, maybe moving forward, give some additional action steps. So we talked about that you had thought about those ideas, but maybe some additional action steps for your coworkers and other things that we can be thinking about. So you gave them the idea we need to be mindful of reaching the, how they're looking at us, but maybe how we could integrate ourselves in a different way, something else we could think of. All right, our second one, again, I would like to say in regards to looking at it from the best source of the company, I did like, from someone who has been in the corporate world for a number of times, sometimes to get that buy-in from the top, that is a good idea, but I think it has to be very careful when you're doing that. You want to make sure that you're giving them that feedback about this is what's great. Tone from the top as well is very important. So when you're talking about that anti-corruption, we can talk a lot about the bottom line, but again, remember, in the ethics and compliance world, we also have to see, we are supposed to be the ethical compass, the mindset a lot of times for the company. So when you're doing an ethical appeal like that, you would like to make sure, again, you're balancing both sides, because again, to get that feedback and buy-in from the top is so important. And really, because we want to make sure that when we're moving forward, we're thinking about those terms. All right, and for Oxford, I love the idea. I thought your speaking skills were fantastic. I am just completely in awe of that. So that was wonderful. It really felt like we were having a one-on-one conversation. Again, I would like to kind of echo what Samantha had said. I would have loved more data on those stats in regards to, because it felt, I once had somebody use this term, almost like a punch in the nose, like, wait, what? And I would have loved to have known more. So now I'm going to have to go out and find it. So that means it was very engaging, but you would probably leave somebody on an elevator pitch wanting more. And that way you could make sure you make that case for yourself. Maybe one other thing, I loved all the ethical side. Again, because we are looking at this from a business standpoint as well, let's make sure, if we are able to sometimes, to also talk about maybe the financial aspect of it. Is the utilization of this type of collagen, again, would it be cheaper? Things like that. So again, it's holistically better for everyone, both ethically, financially, and for the company, which gets an easier buy-in. And lastly, for Trent from Manitoba, I thought it was I loved your example of, I think it was a 737 taking off every hour. That was such a powerful, really, for me, it was very visual in a way. I could see that, I can understand that. And I'm so sorry to continue to say the same things that Samantha did, but I would love to have known more about the company, kind of what we were moving towards. And also, we talked about some ways, again, on the water neutral. I love that you used that example with the carbon neutral as well, that kind of giving me a great idea, because it's something I've heard a number of times, but you gave me such a great idea of thinking, yeah, the person down the street is not going to care as much as if it's in another country. So when we're thinking about internationally, I think it's so important, though, to think of everything as a whole, but also to give those specific local examples like you did. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Trinity. I have just a few more things to add. Now, I should preface all of this by saying we know how difficult a 90-second presentation is. And it's also very difficult to judge. So because oftentimes the judges will disagree on some things, but that's why we meet afterwards to iron those things out. So you're getting a lot of feedback. If you tried to implement all the feedback, you couldn't. So not in 90 seconds anyway. So I want to preface it with that. I will do the same thing, and I will go back starting at the beginning. With the Sharif School, I thought the costume idea was great. I thought that you made this entire 90 seconds very creative and very grabbing. I could see you getting into an elevator and there's some suits standing around there, and you started talking about it in your hard hat and all. And I thought that was really good. You were very engaging, very conversational, and I thought you really brought through just a lot of personality. You brought things through with it as well. Now we'll move on. We'll move on to our Russian folks. That you had a forceful delivery, and I found your content to be interesting. And One thing I will say is that I think you could have brought more of yourself into it, more of the personality, and maybe some of that didn't come out because I really didn't feel like you were looking at the camera at all, which was frankly a weakness. But you did provide good data for those folks that are more data oriented. I will make the point that in a 90-second, that with your very limited amount of time, there's only so much data you can give. But I thought the data that you did give was good. And you did go overtime on this, over the 90 seconds, which is unfortunate. So try and remember you're coming to competitions in the future that we do time you, and that is part of the judging process. Third off is Oxford, and I really liked this. The fact that you opened with an emotional appeal. People have different styles of how they like to be communicated with. But one of the things that we all respond to, whether we want to admit to it or not, is an emotional appeal, because we are all emotional, no matter how it is, how much we try to hide it. Emotions naturally play a part of being a human. And so when you open up by talking about animal slaughter and things like that, people love animals. Who doesn't love animals? So you grabbed us by starting out with that particular statement, and you made me want to listen. Actually, you made me not want to listen because I don't want to hear about animals being hurt. But anyway, as a business person, I thought that it was very, very grabbing. I thought bringing in the study was good. Very little room for data in a 90-second presentation, but I do recommend just at least one or two pieces, because it does show that you have some research to back up what it is you're saying. So I thought that was well done, and you did not overdo that. I will echo what my colleagues said, that very nice presentation skills. You looked at the camera, so you became very, very engaging. You seem to really care about your subject matter, and that really makes me want to care about it as well. We are less likely to respond to broadcast information and more likely to respond to those kind of appeals that are more personal. So I thought you did a very nice job on that. Next up, we're talking to Manitoba. Really agreeing with my colleagues, I thought you had a really, really good call to action at the end. People knew what to do. And that's really what this was about, was because 90 seconds, you can't do much. The idea is less to educate and more to stimulate the interest. And so to understand what it is after this 90 seconds that you're thinking we ought to do, making that very clear, I thought was very good. Love the fact that you started with imagine something happening. Very, very, very creative, very engaging, asking your audience to imagine something. Gives me some time to get a little bit zen and close my eyes and visualize what it is you're talking about. A very, very effective communication strategy. I thought your 3.5 million, I thought your little bit of data was also very good to buttress your argument. Yeah, it was a very powerful piece, and I really felt like there was again a good call to action, and you stimulated my interest. Those are my comments and the comments of your colleague judges. Do you have any questions at this point? And these are meant to be as much applicable to your future as it is to IBEX. So understand that we know that 90 seconds isn't a long time. Any questions from our participants? Okay, any additional questions, Samantha and Trinity, before we close today? Can the two of you, by the way, can you stay for 5 minutes after, so we can meet on this, 10 minutes or so? Good, thank you. Congratulations, you have completed all 3 of your presentations at IBEC. Applause to you, and I believe you are the first team to finish everything. So now you get to relax a little bit. I would like to say just a couple things as we close. Next year, I said this last year, but COVID made a liar out of me. But next year, we're still planning on meeting live in Boston. Boston or Cambridge is where we almost always go. The numbers in Boston for COVID and all, they started to spike up a little bit. And so we had to make the decision so far in advance in order to get everything organized that Tom made the decision that we would do it this way. But we know that what everybody prefers is to meet in person so you can meet more students and all. And as judges, that's what we prefer as well. So our plan is to do that. It will be mid-April. We don't have a date, of course, yet, but we do hope that those of you who are not graduating this year will come back to us next year, or at least talk to some of your folks back at your schools and encourage them to come to IBEC as well, because the conversations and the presentations and the entire event really hinge upon the relationships that we can form. At IBEC, there are 7 of us senior judges and around 50 regular judges. Now, that's a lot for something like this. And let me also add and tell you, everybody's a volunteer. Nobody gets paid. So how is it that we can have this organization that has all of these judges that will come back year after year? Our judges are experienced. We don't just pull them off the street. They're very experienced, and many of them have come for more than 10 years. How do we do that? Wouldn't you love to have an organization with all volunteer employees that want to come back and work very hard for no money? How do we do that? Well, 2 things. I'm always the curious type, so I ask people, why do you keep coming back to IBEC, and what is it? Well, 2 things really come to the forefront. Number 1, we really, really love and believe in IBEC. And everything that IBEC stands for, IBEC walks the talk. We are an organization about ethics, and everything is run extremely ethically. And just knowing that we have an organization that we can depend on and further the mission of bringing business ethics into a broader area of the world really means a lot to us to be able to be a part of that. And then number 2, and maybe this is the more important thing, we all talk about how much benefit that we get from you, how much we learn from you, because you are all the smart ones that are out there, and you're the ones that are bringing us the information on things that we didn't know about. Obviously, business ethics finds its way into everything. And so your judges are not necessarily experts in the area that you are speaking from, but we always learn new things that we can take back to our workplaces and explain to others that, hey, I learned a whole new concept in this. And I thought that was something worth sharing. And so because we believe in IBEC, because we believe in you so much, and because we value the time that we spend with you so much, that's how we get so many people that want to come back to IBEC, whether they're a judge or a participant. Why we have so much repetition in people coming back and joining us. And I certainly hope that you will be amongst them. And who knows, after you spend some time out there, maybe sometime you might want to be a judge. Who knows? But thank you very, very much. And we just appreciate your being here so much. You've done a great job. And I hope that this experience has been as good for you as it has been for us.